Hello, everyone. Bob here, and welcome to the Voice of the Movies. For this week's episode, we are going to look at 1981's The Prowler. The film was directed by Joseph Zito, and the makeup effects were done by Tom Savini. But most importantly to this episode, the music was composed by Richard Einhorn. So let's look at Waxworks packaging and the records themselves, and then I'll give you my thoughts on the soundtrack. I've already removed the album from the enclosed protective sleeve that it comes in. There's the hype sticker. I wanted to be sure and show you guys that. There's the front artwork. There is the artwork in the middle of the gatefold. And there's the back. Take note that there are only 4 tracks on this. There are 4 suites to be exact. Side A is the Prowler suite. Side B, Stalking the Ground suite. Side C is Dormitory Intruder suite. And side D, A Rose to Remember You by suite. Both LPs in this are at 45 RPM. The LPs themselves are in an Army fatigue swirl, because of course the killer in this film is wearing World War II Army fatigues. Both of the records themselves look fairly similar, so I'll just show you the a sticker around the middle here for the other LP. So that's upside down. This is also included. And on the opposite side is a note about the music written by the director, Joseph Zito. That note basically goes on to explain that that Richard Einhorn was not Joseph Zito's pick to compose this film, that he was kind of forced upon him by the producer. And they fought like cats and dogs over every little choice that was made in the picture, because he was the outsider. He wasn't, the composer was the outsider, and he wasn't who the director wanted, so he made him prove why he wanted every choice that he made him prove it. Well, in the end, they were both happy with the final result. If you've seen the movie, or if you read that note that I showed you a little bit ago on one side of the liner notes, or the insert that was included with the album, you'll know that the movie starts off with a lady breaking up with her boyfriend, who is in the army that's off fighting in World War II. And a year later, the lady and the boyfriend are murdered with a pitchfork, and a single rose is left behind. Well, that's where the heartache... There are 2 aspects of this score that are quite clear. There's part of it that focuses on the heartache and the loss and the devastation that it's focusing on the breakup, the loss that the boyfriend felt, and that is used quite a bit. And the other, of course, is the sense of dread that you have to have with a horror movie score. It builds a sense of dread, and the string instruments are used, and they build dread incredibly well. I once read in a horror movie magazine that that a lot of movie soundtracks make you think of another one, another horror film soundtrack, and that's true to a point. This does make you think of the first Friday the 13th a little bit, but it also makes you think of a movie that came out in 1981 that also dealt with having a dance for the first time in a long time after there was a bad killing. And the only difference is the other one uses a lot of synthesized music to accompany the orchestra. This one doesn't. That other movie I have already reviewed the soundtrack for, My Bloody Valentine. Like I say, both films came out in 1981. Makes you think a little bit of it. It's this one soundtrack doesn't have songs and stuff built into it like the other one does. The other one works well for that movie, and this one works well for this movie. There isn't a whole lot to nitpick with this album. The way that Einhorn plays with your feelings, you have to build up the heartache and the grief, and then the tension and dread that I talked about earlier. It fits this film incredibly well. While none of the themes or anything are necessarily anything you're going to come out of this humming, it is certainly a soundtrack that serves the movie well and lifts it to another level. The Prowler is one of my favorite slasher films to watch, and the soundtrack adds the right atmosphere, and it helps to enrich the world that you're seeing on the screen. You'd never know from watching the movie about all the behind-the-scenes struggle between Einhorn and Joseph Zito. But I would recommend this soundtrack to any horror fan because it's, to me, is one of the classic 80s slasher film scores. That's all I've got for this review. I know there isn't a whole lot I had to say about it, but I just wanted to cover this one because it felt right, because it is like a graduation ball that they're having, and there are a lot of schools in my area having their graduation now. They all got delayed because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and it just felt like an appropriate time to review this the soundtrack for this film. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content of this video, please give it a like. Please consider subscribing to my channel. I try to have new content up daily. Doesn't always work that way, but that's my goal. Follow me on Facebook or Twitter. Just search for Bob the Film Guy. And for now, this is Bob, signing off.